Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Good morning. Welcome. We are glad that you're here. I will be your on-camera facilitator. My name is Katie Gideon, and I'm so excited to be here. I feel like I've kind of gone the playlist route because even though it's afternoon for me, I know it's morning for you all. So try not to come in fully aggressive with all the loud and obnoxious noises. But I'm glad that you're here for our November weekly setup. This is going to be for week two. Want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator, who you will see in the chat, Bailey, who went the definitely like hooga koozie route, and I'm here for that. That is, I feel like, the best example of what this social looks like. I am on camera, I am talking, I'm having to do all of these things. I had to, brush my hair, do my makeup, all those little things. But you guys get to participate in the chat, get cozy. Hopefully, you have something to drink. Some of you, I do hope you are still in your pajamas, if possible, with whatever blanket furry friends that you have there as your assistants. But this is time that you've now set aside for you to work on that week too. So glad that you're here. Love seeing all of our returning socialers in the chat. It is so fun to see all of those names scrolling across. But if you are new and this is your first social, we would love to give you the proper introduction in the chat. So just double check that your chat is set to everyone. It'll default to hosts and panelists, which can be fun. But as much as myself and Bailey will answer all those questions, we love to see those. We know that you certainly want to see everybody in the chat as well. But with that being said, you don't have to participate in the chat if you don't want to. There is no right or wrong way to participate in these socials. Maybe you're here to really kind of buckle down and get some setup done in your journals. Maybe you need that spark of inspiration because last week didn't turn out the way you wanted, or you need to kind of still find your journal routine. So you can look at those examples that we have in the slides. You can get some of that inspiration that you have in the chat. Or maybe you're just here again for that chat support. Like I said, you've had a bad day, you're just checking in with your Sonder fam, and you just want to be here for the music as kind of a self-meditated thing. We are glad that you're here in whatever way you have come, and we cannot wait to spend the next hour together. So, as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Everyone, please respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. But I always add a caveat to that because we love to share our products. We love to share and hear how you all are enjoying the product. So, if you have like a favorite app, a favorite book, a favorite tool, a favorite component of this, we love to share it. We love to hear it. But we just ask that it doesn't detract from the reason we're here. And Bailey and I have some information, but we will most likely redirect a lot of your customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkandsonder.com. And Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. You are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So we love to cheer on all of our ones that have had really great weeks or have really exciting things to come. I know a lot of our folks will also join us on vacations. So we love to see that, but we also are fully aware that there are times that you're in just a hard spot. You had a rough week. You just don't seem to think that everything has been going great. And so we are glad that you've come exactly as you are. So if you need to set up some of those mental and emotional barriers and boundaries, please do so. You should not leave this triggered in any way, shape, or form. I always say if you leave this not a little bit lighter, not a little bit more optimistic, not a little bit more hopeful, then I don't think I have done my job. But we are glad that you're here, but definitely give yourself some grace. Take those deep breaths. No one is grading you. No one is moving along in these capacities. So take what you need from this. So, with that, we are now leaning into the theme for this month, which is kindness. And I am trying to do a lot of like internal pivoting. My theme for this past year has been back to basics. And that's because I've had a lot of changes, good, bad, and the otherwise. And I just need to come back to some of those like core values, the core skill sets that I know I have. I have just been neglecting them. So I liked this idea of like the self-kindness. And honestly, the quote on the left absolutely cracked me up. And that was the be nice to yourself. It's hard to be happy when someone is mean to you all the time. And like I said, I chuckled at this because I was like, this is so True, because you think of all the mean people or the people that have hurt your feelings or the ones that make the like passive aggressive comments and those things. But there are times where you have someone in your head and it's you and you are the meanest person to yourself that day. So I thought that was quite an interesting component there. But then it also ties into self-kindness involves more than just stopping the self-judgment. It involves actively comforting ourselves, responding just as we need to a dear friend in need. So what I also appreciated that is there have definitely been times where I have caught myself being unkind to myself, but I haven't taken that next further, that like next step further, where it's like, okay, I've stopped the self-judgment, but I do think there could be a further exploration of why did we do this? Why did we feel this way? Why were we so critical of it? Is there something kind of underlying? So a little bit more of the peeling back your layers, because like I said, I feel like it's now that perspective, like I'm really only doing half of the work because I'm acknowledging that I've stopped it and I'm trying to be kinder. But it now kind of goes into that deeper digging that I think there are times where I definitely need some sort of prompts or thoughts as I'm kind of journaling and reflecting, and I feel like I appreciate that. And then at the end of the day, the overarching, I think, idea with kindness, because this applies to not only yourself and everyone around you, it's that whole concept of Sonder that people are living these very vivid, real lives as going in parallel with you. So the being kind to yourself, for we all struggle to find our way in this vast universe. And so if you're constantly dealing with someone who's mean to you that you can control, you can kind of piece all of these things together because you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, you're going to have everything in between. The last thing you need is, again, that constant unkind entity being you. And so taking it that next sort of step further to not only acknowledge, but what can we then do? What do we need to kind of bring in that whole idea of the self-kindness and embracing it wholeheartedly instead of just the partial. And so with that, I know we've still got some people arriving. Welcome, you're just in time. We have not started any of the prompts, but we are going to cover the kindness mind map, the rosebud thorn reflection exercise, and then those weekly setup pages. So if you are just joining us, we're now moving into that first prompt. And so we're going to go to our wonderful mind maps, which are now an integral part of our weekly setups. And so we're going to be on week 2. But as always, if you miss a week or if you show up a little bit late, we do include the previous week's responses. But just because we include that does not mean you're behind, does not mean you need to catch up. I feel like my mantra for these socials are always take what you need. And sometimes what you need is to do those deeper reflections under the lens of this particular theme, which is kindness. Or maybe what you need is maybe you don't need it, is kind of that. But we like the option to do so. And this is not printed in your journal. So go ahead and move to that blank page or that blank section that you've repurposed for your mind map. Because now we're going to explore that quiet yet powerful strength that lives within you. And so we always, again, think in terms of kindness can be that grand gesture, brightening some stranger's day. But it can be a little bit more than that, especially with the quotes that we just talked about, is turning it a little bit more inward and how can you show kindness to yourself. So the first week that we covered were specific acts of kindness. And that was, from the past that either put a smile on your face, made you happy, made you feel better. And as even I looked at that, it was not me that was pulling me out of that. Yep, it is on the slide right now. And then this week, week 2, we're now going to dive a little bit deeper into the sensory details of some of those experiences. Because as we know, the sounds, smells, tastes, textures, visuals kind of tap into us feeling a little bit more present, being a little bit more present, but also maybe a little bit fuller nostalgic reflection on things. So we are going to consider some of those sounds, smells, tastes, textures, or visuals that trigger nostalgia. And so a couple of the examples are listed here. I have included them on this page as well, because you all know I like to include a couple other things. So the example is mine on the right, how I design my mind map pages. I've become a big fan of this style, but we know everybody has a bunch of different approaches to that. So the first 3 questions and statements on the page are directly from the previous slide. But then I also think that this is another one of those that it's your opportunity to either focus on one memory or tap into a different memory for each of the senses. And again, the reminder for that is sight, sound, smell, taste, and feel. For me, some of the bigger driving senses for me are always smell as well as sound. So it was kind of reflecting on, for me, it's always like the chapsticks, the lip balms. Those are the things that I absolutely associate quite vividly. And those are the scents that kind of come through. So when I come across some of those, I am instantly transported back there. Same thing with if there were songs or music that I either heard before, during, or after, that puts me right back into those scenes as well. But this, I think, is one of those, it's going to be really nice to kind of reflect all this, tap into those nostalgia. What, again, are those acts of kindness? And for me, it's almost like kindness adjacent because it's not like I've got this amazing like soundtrack over my mind or those things that are associated with it. It's more of like, the feelings or kind of those type of things, which I found kind of interesting as I was going through this. So I will go back to those slides, stop talking, gonna play some music, but we are working on our week 2 mind map. And we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Woo, the nostalgia definitely caught up on me. I had to go get something to wipe my eyes because it was the pet comment that absolutely sent me over. The sound of their little feet. I'm not even going to talk about it because I'll start crying again. But as we know, nostalgia can be one of those things that you can kind of look back very much fondly, and then there are ones that it just definitely creeps up in all the feelings and the emotions. So being able to lean into them is great. But I also wanted to highlight, Bailey brought up a very good point. That if the nostalgia component can be a little triggering and be a little upsetting. And so this was also, I think, a really good exercise to maybe carry through the rest of the week, of just kind of the sitting and having that small meditative moment with what do you see here? What do you currently smell? What are you touching? What are you currently hearing as like that kind of grounding meditation tool. But you can kind of add it over into, can you tap into that idea of a kindness action from just sitting there doing those things? Um, so I think it's something that can be really powerful, as we know, tapping into the senses. I sometimes can be a little hit or miss with these type of exercises, but I do find the power in them. And there are days where I'm definitely mentally just on board to like let go and lean into all those senses. The other ones where I'm a little bit more skeptical. But what at the end of the day, I do think it adds another fuller and richer component to those memories and that nostalgia and just the magic of kind of day-to-day things. And for those, I am always appreciative of. So thank you for sharing. Now we're going to move to page 37 for your rose, a bud, thorn reflection. And so this is again that continuation on reflecting onto those highs, lows, and everything in between that has happened last week. What I think is really special about this particular exercise is you can kind of hyperfixate on any of these single things and basically generalize how your week was based on all of these things, but the opportunity to again see a bright spot, a low spot, and kind of something to then get excited about in one kind of sitting, I think is really nice and it's really helpful because then you can then make that intentional decision. Do I want to take any of these thoughts, feelings, lessons into the next week, or do I just want to leave them as is? So the rose is going to be something that was a highlight, something that went well, something that made you smile, made you happy. For me, really, it is just the fact that I finished a book and now I've moved into a new book. A new book is always a rose in my book. Just because I'm working on my reading count, book count for this reading goal. So I'm excited, and I've done some kind of nice, fluffy seasonal rom-coms, which have been great and fun as we move into fall. But now I'm going full blown into a thriller, which I'm kind of excited about. And then the bud, that's an emerging opportunity, something you're looking forward to, something that is out on the horizon that you haven't quite figured out if it's going to be a rose. Is there something you can change from a thorn to a rose? Or is it just something that's there? The book, it's I think it's called Fun Park. But it's kind of some kids going to abandoned park and we'll see what transpires. It's very vague, but I really like the setting of nothing like a derelict amusement park to for a good thriller in my mind. So the emerging opportunity, for me in particular, I have quite a calendar coming up. And it's like the good combination of work is what it is, but I have some like kind of social events with friends. The main character club that I'm a part of over here in Scotland, a handful of them are here for events. So we're having a big kind of reunion dinner. As I said, a friend of mine from Germany is in town, so she's hanging out with me for that. So I always like a good full calendar, but it's like kind of the fun stuff for just like the breaks you need or the distractions that you need. So I'm really excited about that. And then the thorn, that's going to be a challenge. Something that maybe didn't go so well, something that is making maybe taking up too much time, energy, and effort in your mind, body, and soul, all of those things. Because I feel like even I kind of critique and edit what I think is negative, or what can be a thorn. So I always like to kind of frame it in that capacity. But for me, the thorn, I've woken up the past couple days with a headache, and that always just like puts me in a bad mood. I just don't know how to do it because it's like sometimes you're like, well, is it going to fade? Or here I am today on like hour 4 or 5 of just like the dull pain. Um, so that can be just a massive distraction and a massive thorn in my side. But again, we're on page 37. As always, if you want to share, we love to again celebrate those roses, get excited about those buds and acknowledge and provide a little extra thought prayer and support for those thorns. And we'll see you soon. And unmute. Thank you for sharing. As we said, what I really appreciate this because you all are the best accountability buddies that we have. So I always enjoy these check-ins with each and every one of you, especially some that I haven't seen in a while. I took some time off in October because I was on vacation. So it's always fun to see kind of how everyone is living, how everyone's doing, kind of the progress of all those. Because if you've been coming to these socials for a while, I feel like we've hit some milestones together. So I always love and appreciate that kind of check-in because at the same time, you guys are the best cheerleaders and also a really lovely support system to kind of overlay. So I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing. And so now we're going to move on to page 40 and page 41 in your weekly planner. So these are the pages of why you are here. And so again, you can kind of leave that rosebud thorn reflection kind of in the rearview mirror. You can bring some of those with you. And I think is a really kind of good grounding kind of with this is one, we're going to show some interesting ways to repurpose. Maybe you can get some inspiration, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel each and every week. I am very much a creature of habit. I am a copy and paste type person. So a lot of my day to day and week to weeks are going to look very, very similar. But sometimes you have to, I always recommend asking yourself, what do you need this week? Because what you need this week may be something completely different because your schedule is different, you're doing something different, or you're just in kind of a different headspace. And so maybe what you need is exactly as written, and maybe you need exactly as written not to connect. You just need those very simple boxes in their same little compartments, and that is how you're going to leave it. Maybe what you need this week is to connect all of those things together because you just need a little bit more of that extra support or extra functionality or extra overlays to kind of make sure that you're reaching whatever accomplishment you want to make. And sometimes what you need is completely different. It's covering up things, it's taking the washi tape and just redecorating everything. And also, sometimes what you need is just a break. You need a break from some of those sections, a break from some of the pages. And all of these are very valid and amazing approaches because, as I said, if you get a little lost or a little stumped or not quite sure where to go, or if you've maybe been struggling the past week with kind of the journal routine and all of those things, this is your opportunity to kind of sit down and sit with yourself and figure out what you need. So we are going to start at the top of page 40 with that this week I want to feel. I use this as my end goal. How am I going to get through the week? So I always ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? Because this is that opportunity to take some little intentional optimism of as I navigate my week with the roses, the buds, and the thorns, this can kind of bring me back to equilibrium. I'm still very much a goal-oriented person, so I always need something to aspire to. And so this is my opportunity to kind of demand that of myself. And a lot of times that can be you want to feel a specific word, a specific phrase, an affirmation. Sometimes you want to embrace something instead of feel it. Maybe it's the 1%, a sort of present, less of something, more of something. Maybe it's a different word for each day. And what I really liked is, I mean, total transparency. I'm definitely feeling the like seasonal funk. I've been a little bit of a low energy last couple weeks, and I don't know if it's coming off of vacation or the fact that it gets dark here at like 4 o'clock. It just is what it is. So I'm having a hard time because it's not necessarily that I'm tired. It just kind of is. So I was trying to figure out ways that I could maybe tap into other things to trick myself into having a little bit more energy. And I came across this mood meter. And so I liked the overlay of the high energy versus low energy, the unpleasant versus pleasant. And even I tried to consider if there was a way that I could trick myself into if I wear maybe a yellow, an orange, or a brighter color. Can that give me the more pleasant high energy idea, even though I still continue to sit here in my blues and grays and cold tones? And so I was like, maybe that's actually the vibe that we're trying to not go for. So I was like kind of tapping into some of those colors. So again, maybe reaching for that red pen instead of the blue pen, just to see, especially with the senses exercise that we did at the beginning, were there going to be things that I could somehow do to do this? And so I'll report back next week to see what I think of it. But it's also the same thing, seeing some more of those in there, the rejuvenation. Maybe it's a doodle, maybe it's a sticker. Stickers are basically small pictures, and pictures are worth 1,000 words. So I'm going to play a quick song, but I would love to hear how you want to feel this week, or this week you want to feel, and kind of put that in there, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So we're going to stay on page 40, and I'm going to combine these next sections with the weekly major three goals and the weekly to-dos. And that's just because even in my brain and how I think of some of those things, that's how I put those things together. But again, maybe what you need is to keep those things separate. And just because they are major three goals, they could maybe be minor three goals. And you don't have to have three goals. Maybe it's two goals, maybe it's one goal. And again, don't worry, I'll go back through all of these slides. And if you ever need me to go back to a specific example, let me know in the chat. But a good way to approach this are the categories. And that's again your three categories, the mind, the body, the soul. Maybe it's leaning into the alliterations with the creative, capable, carefree. The social yesterday, they leaned into some of the fruitful, I think it was like fruitful, fancy, and something else that I thought was really great. It could have been a focus. Or it could be just like the three major things that you need to get done. For me, this usually tends to be the mental and emotional reminders I need to give myself to give through the week. But there have definitely been previous weeks where it's just been the three big things that I need to do. One of them, like the big three that I needed to have done was I needed to renew my passport, I needed to file taxes, and I needed to put in a maintenance request. So those got moved from my to-do list to absolutely highlighted into my major three goals because those were the major to-dos that I needed to get to done. And so maybe you also want to focus this not as like weekly major goals, but each, especially if you're trying to go back more into a little bit of a routine, a day-to-day routine, maybe these are your daily goals. So you have an early one, a midday one, and an evening one to kind of help structure it a little bit. Or again, you'll hear me use the term zooming in and zooming out. Maybe you need to zoom in a little bit more and focus on one major goal and have your to-dos lead to that. I always think in terms of planning, do you have like a big event or something coming up that maybe requires a little bit more of a focus? Or you can, again, tie the to-dos directly into those categories and those goals as the bottom section. Or maybe it's just your weekly affirmations. I'm going to steal Bailey's thunder real quick because she tends to put her Jenny affirmations in this section. Jenny is our 24/7 AI coach. She's amazing. She's wonderful. She starts to work and interact with your habits and helps provide a lot of folks that use it inspiration to kind of tackle some of these things as well as overlay some of your kind of personal needs and requirements to tailor it a little bit more. So maybe it is more of those affirmations, mantras, those ideas there. Maybe it is just two, excuse me, focusing on two things like the home and the work or some of those alliterations. And then you have the weekly to-do lists that can go kind of hand in hand with that, be it a to-do list, a to-do list, or an Eisenhower matrix. The Eisenhower matrix is the top right ones, the do, decide, delegate, and delete. And that is just a way to prioritize and recategorize some of your to-dos instead of just a to-do list. I'm having certainly a hard time kind of tackling some of my to-do lists recently, and I think it ties into the low energy. So I'm normally a to-do person or an Eisenhower matrix, but now I think I'm going to have to pull in some of the Pomodoro technique just to actually start knocking things off my to-do list because they're just kind of floundering, and it's absolutely the things that I know will take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but they're just getting delayed. So I feel like that's where I am currently at, but you can again recategorize these. Maybe it's a separating them into a needs and a wants, a don't do this, a do this instead type thing. Maybe it's a to be, maybe it's some of those weekly wins, maybe it's how you showed yourself kindness. I like the bottom right one with the work and personal, the need and the want combination, or even then just some pictures, motivation there, all that thing. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to play some music and I will see you soon. But yes, whatever understanding kind of do you have your three goals and your to-do list work together? Or is there kind of other things that you've repurposed? Is this a copy and paste thing for you as well? But we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. So, still staying on page 40, we are going to move down to that bottom section, which is the habit and activity. This one in particular, I am a creature of habit. So, these get copied and pasted. I have the same three on my monthly habit tracker, honestly, probably going on a year plus. That's what I always use, that's what I always incorporate. And I carry those three things over into my weekly habit and activities tracker. And I add the kind of lens of reality. So those are the three things that I want to do every single day. But what I then add is the how much time can I allocate to each of these things? So, as I mentioned, I've just been some low energy. So my movement has been very minimal. A lot of it has been just like kind of the hourly step count that I get, which I'm okay with. So I feel like this is what's helped me kind of manage my expectations for it so I don't have goals that I set with that. Same thing with reading. I need to focus a little bit more on kind of other things, my to-do list, my work list. So reading is probably going to limit to like a chapter, maybe only 5 to 10 minutes here and there. Same thing with the journal reflections will be more of kind of the lunch break type things. But that is just kind of how I approach it with my copy and paste. And then maybe you want to set goals with that, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, how you want to do these things. Maybe these are where the mental and emotional reminders are. Maybe these are the things that you want to stop doing. Maybe if you are on vacation and so your week is going to look a little bit different, or you want to be more present, maybe this is where you completely cover over. A lot of times, this is the section that I omit on this page when I just need a bit of a break, when I need to do a reset or I need to focus on some things because we know our weekdays look a little bit different than our weekends. And as always, just because there are 5 lines does not mean you need to have 5 habits and activities that you're working on. And at the same time, this is also one of those things that you can use to kind of build maybe a journal routine. So you can always help future you kind of check in with your intentions, check in with your other fall activities, your other trackers. So, excuse me, I know a lot of people will put one on there as the kind of check in, and I think Nathania put a recommendation in there as well to kind of call it exactly what it is when it comes to a check in. And you all know me and my adventure list and bucket list. I've repurposed the expense page for that very much reason. And then, so I've already included a lot of these things. We are indeed soup season because a lot of things I have found that I do them. So why not make them special? Why not make them magical? Maybe give them their little line on their to-do list and adventure list. Because I have just found that that makes me a little bit more content, which is kind of my day to day. And so I think it's really fun. I also liked the Halloween candy for a gingerbread house. I thought that was pretty clever because we do have some of those. And again, I don't claim any of these. I get these from social media. I don't do any of the doodles. For me, it's just the fun idea of things that I can do or that I can incorporate in my day to day. Just to have something fun to do, a little bit of a break. Kind of those ideas there. Same thing with the bucket lists here, as well as the checklist, because I feel like I have done quite a few of these. And I feel like it's one of those, make it special, call it what it is, since a lot of these are already in our routine anyway. So I am going to stop talking, let you work on this section. But as always, I would love to hear what habits and activities you are working on. And I do shout out to the copy and paste folks. But I always appreciate those that need to kind of revamp some of these things. And so we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now we're going to turn over to page 41, which I refer to as the B side. And that's because, again, I think of it in terms of a record player. So we just completed all the hits on the first page that we just did. The B side for me has some gems that I use occasionally, but for the most part, I don't particularly use this page that often. And that took me quite a while to get to the point where I was completely happy with that. But I was just kind of partially doing it. I couldn't get enough inspiration to kind of go full blown on it. So that was kind of how I approach it, and that's how I do it. So I'm going to combine all of these sections together because this is a page that gets repurposed quite a bit. Because when I talk about the gems that are on this page, the template is so great, and it is so much potential to kind of whatever you need. And so, starting with that meal plan, maybe what you need is to plan and budget for those meals. So, it can be that pre planning tool. Maybe what you need is actually more of the real time tracker because you are looking at symptoms, you're on a specific healthcare journey. So, this becomes maybe a meal tracker. Maybe you're wanting to lean into the themes a little bit more with the like more meal plan for the soul. So maybe this is how you showed yourself kindness this week. Maybe this is where the daily affirmations live, your responses to the daily rituals that you can find in the app. Maybe some inspiration from Jenny, or leaning into some of those other senses of maybe this is your sensory break. So you tap into some of Jen's coloring socials and give yourself that mental break there with either the doodles or leaning into some of the other creativeness with a haiku or a priorities list or your big win of the day, your rose for the day, your highlight, a ta-da thing. Even just maybe being a little bit more present in your day to day. It may not be your act of kindness, but did you see an act of kindness as kind of like a kindness log in that capacity, which I think could be a good maybe way to get out of your head and not be as critical on yourself, but kind of tap into the larger world around you. And then you can move into the mind body health plan, which is another one of those that you can plan for, hence plan in the title, or it can be something that you track a little bit more in real time. So maybe you want to lean into the alliterations of the days of the week, the national days of, as it was mentioned, Veteran Days is on Tuesday, but then you have the other themes of this particular month and those ideas. So sometimes they can be food related, sometimes they can be other things. So exactly, love it. The fun food of the day, which is a great idea. So leaning into some of those. Nathania, who is in the chat, I love this mental check-in with the I feel and I need. I have found myself using that just as like a small reflective meditative moment throughout the day when I start to feel like I don't have a focus point. I'm a little scattered. So it's just that simple way of asking yourself, how are you feeling? And then moving into that, taking that next step of what is your now action item. But maybe this is just where a cute little picture lives, affirmation. Maybe this is where you want to kind of lean into a little bit of the bucket list idea if you don't want to repurpose one of the bigger pages for it. This is a fun little one to be there for. Maybe it's a reading log. Focusing in those 5 days that you want to schedule each week, leaning into the 7 types of rest, or even battling some of that seasonality, fatigue with the dark hours and the hibernation, or maybe this is your Hooga list. You have a lot of options for this particular area. Again, the iconography here. So I loved this theme of don't forget to enjoy these with the Disney flair, full blown hijacking some of Bailey's thoughts and opinions since I feel like she is the Disney queen of our facilitators. But I couldn't resist because it was so pretty, and I didn't realize just how many fall nuances you could have with some of those things. And then if you're on any of the social medias, at Silk and Sonder on Instagram is another great one to follow. And so here are some ways to reduce stress in the fall, kind of leaning into a lot of those things. So I always appreciate that. And then you've got the shopping list, which can go hand in hand with that meal plan, but also with the holidays coming up, aka Christmas, if you celebrate that. Maybe this is where you start planning some of those things. But we also love a good bingo, so you can turn these into a single seasonal bingo or a themed bingo. Maybe if you have a milestone birthday coming up or just a birthday in general, anniversary, any of those things can be turned into a bingo to kind of implement that. The fall bingos I think are really fun and really great. Or again, as we move into those darker days, not figuratively, but literally, maybe you want to start tying into those social check-ins. Those can be really, really important, really valuable. So incorporating that into your reflection and habits as well. Maybe mini breaks, maybe the buy, don't buy list, a glimmer bingo, a kindness bingo, self-care. Maybe this is where your work from home wardrobes are, all of those things. So I know that is quite a bit, but I am going to play one more song and then we'll move into our closing component as we come to the end of this social. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And then you have that very last section on page 41, which is the I am loving. I always love sarcasm and slightly dark humor. So that is really what I have been embracing because I feel like that's what is getting me through my days right now. So these are kind of the vibes that I feel like we have. But if you would like to share in the chat just some of the things that you're loving, I always like to see that as well. But I think this is just a really fun, light section. Yeah, the snacky snacks, the sad otter that didn't get all the good snacky snacks when they were trying to be healthy. And then as always, I love this page. This is page 39, which means we're surprisingly halfway through the month, which is wild. And the reason I love this one is I'm a big reader. As Bailey, I know, was talking a little bit earlier, we are currently obsessed with a particular series, but we do read a lot of the other things. And so I love this one in that the page gives you an opportunity to answer these things. And I see it as a beginning, a middle, and an end because there are three lines in each category. So I love looking at this as the beginning and middle end of the story of the particular month that we just went through. So I love that check-in to see what sort of, again, story or evolution did I go through. Bailey put it in there. It's the Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I feel like we need to turn it into our own Bigo card when I do some of these of how many times can I repeat myself. But I know page 39 can always be a little bit scary because there really aren't any instructions and it's a lot of blank space. But I do think this is a very underrated page just because I love the magic and potential it is. Because when was the last time, like it always associates with the nostalgia of being kids when people ask, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite dinosaur? To me, this is that page where someone is asking me all of just the fun little rapid fire questions that I love to answer because I don't always like to answer all of the like sciencey data analytics marketing questions that I have to do in my day to day. And I always get a little bit tired of when people are like, well, how are you feeling today? It's like, I don't want to answer any of those questions. I just want to tell you what I'm currently enjoying. So that is why I love this page and I love the like brain space it relieves. And then, can you believe it? We have reached the end. As always, we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sunder app. You guys provide such amazing inspiration with all of the examples that you share, your pages that you share. So if you're also looking for some more examples, I always call it the post-social flurry that you see in the app. They're always great there. Bailey is also including the YouTube link if you want to go and get other facilitators' perspectives on some of these ideas, but you can also catch up if you miss one or it's not quite in the schedule that works for you. They're a great place to be there. And honestly, there are just some days where it's like, I need a social, I need someone to talk to me and help me do all of these things, but it's not currently scheduled in that capacity. We have also announced our exclusive for the month of November, which is the Sonder Famsgiving. This is one of the socials that does have a fee to get into, but that's going to be on November 14th at 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern. Definitely sign up for that. It's going to be really fun and leaning into the visuals of the fall as well as Thanksgiving to kind of then be overlay with some of the theme with kindness, connection, generosity, all of those things. So, would encourage you to check that out. If you are unavailable that day, but you're still interested in doing, please reach out to hello@silkandsonder.com to get more information on that. We already talked about a little bit with Jenny, but that is obviously still an option here. We are always providing new features and all of those. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to the headquarters team. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, we appreciate all of that. And last but not least, the playlist. I'm a big music fan, so I liked this graphic with how music affects our mood. Because as I said, I am trying to take myself to have more energy and be in a slightly better mood. So I'm pulling in all of the resources, the colors, the scents, the feelings, the sounds. What can we do? But I include all of my social playlists on my Spotify account. So please feel free to do that. I will include the link in the chat once we come off of this. But as always, I appreciate you spending this time with yourself as well as us. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. You guys are going to have an amazing rest of your weekends. Hope you have an amazing week as we continue to lean into kindness and the whole aura of this particular season. But I hope to see you again at a future event, and we will see you soon. Bye.